Okay, so I'm ready to start my butterfly heel. I've just got a little half-size sample here just to demonstrate all the stitches and techniques that you're going to be using to create the heel. And I'm not holding the mohair with this, just so that it's as clear as possible for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is work across needle 1. Now you will be doing that in pattern. I've just got a plain little sample here, so I'm just going to work across needle 1 in my main colour yarn. There we go. We're now going to turn and our heel is going to be worked on this half of the stitches, so it's the back half of the stitches. So I'm going to leave that main colour yarn attached and just ignore it, and I'm going to bring in my contrast yarn. So the first thing I need to do, so the first row, is I'm going to slip that first stitch purlwise and then bring in my contrast yarn, leave a tail to weave in, loop it over, and then I'm going to knit to the last 2 stitches. There we go. And now I'm going to knit those last 2 stitches together. And then turn. And now I'm going to purl all the way to the last 2 stitches at this end. So I'm not slipping anymore, I'm only slipping that very first stitch. So I'm just going to purl and pull that first stitch nice and tight. Purl to the last 2 stitches. And then I'm going to purl those last 2 stitches together. Now before I purl them together, I put my needle in like that, and then I give the tail end of the contrast yarn a nice tug, and it snugs everything up before we actually finish doing that purl 2 together. So purl those last 2 together and turn. And then again we can just pull on that tail end to snug everything up. And now I'm going to knit to the last 2 stitches and then knit those 2 together, turn and purl to the last 2 stitches, and then purl those last 2 stitches together. So you will now continue working those last 2 rows that we were doing. So on the knit side, we're going to knit to the last 2 stitches, knit 2 together. On the purl side, we're going to purl to the last 2 stitches, purl 2 together. Continue repeating those 2 rows until you have the number of stitches remaining that it states in the pattern for your size, and that will complete part 1 of the heel. So I will complete it for my little sample and I'll be back in 1 second. Okay, so I've completed that first side of the heel. We're now ready to start the second side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip the first stitch purlwise and then knit to the end. In my case it's just these few stitches, but you'll be working to the end of that needle. And now we are going to pick up a stitch along this sloping edge here. Now where we're going to pick up on this side, on like the knit side, if you look down the edge here, can you see there's like little bumps here? We're going to be picking up underneath those little bumps. So in effect, if you turn it to the side like that, can you see the V stitches? We're going to be picking up in those V stitches. So not in this sort of bobbly bit here, in here. So in my case, I've just got 4 stitches down the side. You'll have more depending on what size you're working. But you can see it's 1, 2, 3, and then the last one is in your main colour here. That's the last one there. So the first one I'm going to be picking up is right here. And what I'm going to do is go underneath those 2 legs and then just knit it really nice and snug as you can. Okay, and then turn. And now we're going to do the same thing but on the purl side. So slip that first stitch purlwise and now purl all the way across. And on the purl side, we're going to be picking up and purling instead of picking up and knitting. It's not tricky at all, so don't worry. Now, where we're going to be picking up on this side is, again, it's where those decrease points are. And if you turn your work to this side, you'll see where you've done a decrease, you've got kind of like a V on this side here, and there's two legs really close to each other. And that's what we're going to be picking up underneath, those two legs. If you're unsure of where to start, go back to the beginning here of your work where you did the first decrease, and you can see, because we slipped that first stitch in the main colour, we've got one part of sort of one leg here in the main colour and one in the contrast. That'll be the last one you pick up, and then just count backwards because you'll know how many you've got to pick up depending on your size. In my case, I've just got these 4, but there's 1, 2, 3 and 4. So this here is my first pickup. So just go in with your needle purlwise, so sort of from the front of your work here, we'll be going in this way. So it's these two legs here. Can you see where my needle's just gone underneath those two legs? And then purl, and again nice and snug. There we go, and turn. And we're just now going to repeat that until we've picked up all of the stitches on either side, and you will be back to your original stitch count on this needle. But I'll just do it one more time to show you. So slip that first one purlwise and then knit across. And now we're looking for the next one. So this is where we picked up before. You can see your stitch coming out of it. So we're going to this next V stitch here, not the bobbly bit, the V stitch. And go in knitwise, nice and snug, pick it up and turn. And then the purl side, slip that purlwise and purl across. And then look for the next one. So this is where we picked up before. You can see your stitch coming out of it. Just go to the next one down where we've got those two legs there. Underneath purlwise and pick up and purl. So you're just going to repeat those 2 rows until you have picked up all of your stitches on either side of your heel and you're back to your original stitch count here on your needle. So I will complete that and then I'll just show you the last thing we're going to do to neaten up those corners. Okay, so I've finished picking up all of my stitches. I'm back to my original number on this needle, and you can see there I've created my lovely little heel. So now you can cut your contrast yarn, leave a tail enough to weave in, and now we're going to go back to our main colour yarn and we're going to close up any little gaps that we might have here. Now this is a sort of technique I've created myself through trial and error, and I find it works really well. So what we're going to do, get that tail out of the way there. If you look underneath your needle here, you'll see in the main colour yarn the first V here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the left hand leg of that V, can you see right there, and pop it up onto my needle without stretching it too much. Just pop it up there. And now I'm going to knit that together with that first stitch. So I'm back to my main colour yarn now. I'm just getting myself situated. So get your needle in ready to work that decrease. Now sometimes your contrast colour yarn, if it loosens up, it can be a bit tricky to get your needle in. So just take your time, get your needle in. There we go. We're ready to do a knit two together here. I've got my main colour yarn. So when you join like this, whether you work in magic loop like I am or on double points, just close up, that gap. Keep your needles close together. In my case, it's a cable and a needle. But just snug it up as you work that knit 2 together. And now I'm going to knit to the last stitch. Okay, I'm knit to the last stitch. Now just slip that last stitch purlwise over to your right needle. And then we're going to do the same thing on this side, but this one's a little bit more difficult to see. If you look right underneath your contrast yarn here, it's this stitch here, but what you need to do is kind of turn your work to be able to see the full V. So if I put my needle under, can you see there's 2 legs here? 1, 2. And I'm going to be picking up again the left-hand leg, so just pop your needle underneath, your left-hand needle, and it's there, look. And I'm just going straight in that way. And in fact, it's kind of twisting that leg, but that's how it works best, I've found. So pop your needle, your left-hand needle, under that one, the left-hand leg. And now pass that last stitch back over, and we're going to do a knit 2 together again. And again, this is a little, not tricky, but you just have to do it sort of slowly because this leg here is kind of twisted a bit. So you just have to take your time, get your needle under both legs like that. And then again, nice and snug, work that knit 2 together. And what that does is it brings that leg up and sort of covers any gaps on both sides, I find, and I don't get any holes at all. And then we turn. So that's my tail end look from my contrast yarn. You can now just tuck that down inside your sock, pull it out the other end. There we go. Push your needle back in, and that is the heel completed. We're ready now at the start of our round to carry on knitting the foot of our sock.